My name is Paula Morgan. I'm 38 years old, and I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into a before and an after until my boyfriend placed his fork down beside a half-eaten plate of pasta and smiled at me like he was about to share good news. Not during a screaming fight, not after catching him sneaking around, not after a dramatic confession soaked in guilt. It was polite, measured, almost considerate. Victor had cooked that night. Real effort, too. Wine breathing on the counter, candles lit, not the cheap ones, but the ones he saved for anniversaries or apologies, the kind that said, "I'm trying." I remember thinking, maybe he got a promotion. Or maybe he was finally going to talk about marriage. Instead, he reached across the table and placed his hand palm down beside mine. A ring glinted under the kitchen light. Not on my finger, on his. "I wanted you to be the first to know," he said, smiling. "I'm engaged." I stared. Once, twice, 3 times. My eyes traced the unfamiliar diamond, then lifted to his face. "Engaged," I repeated slowly. "Yes, to Brianna. We've been talking again for months. She proposed yesterday." Brianna, his ex-girlfriend, the one he swore was ancient history, the one he told me was blocked everywhere, the one I was being insecure about. "You're engaged," I said, "to another woman, while living in my house." He nodded, enthusiastic. "I know it's unexpected, but I think this is the healthiest way forward." I actually laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. Not humor, just disbelief escaping my body. "Victor," I said carefully, "are you having some kind of breakdown?" His smile faltered. "What? No. I'm in love with her." That part he didn't have to say. "I figured," he continued, "we could work out a transition plan. Maybe I stay another month or 2 while Brianna and I figure out housing. I didn't want this to be messy." I pushed my chair back and stood. My legs felt steady. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me most. I poured myself a glass of scotch, mine, the good bottle he never touched, and took a slow sip before turning back to him. "Congratulations," I said, truly. His shoulders relaxed. "Thank you. I was worried you'd overreact. Pack your things." He blinked. "What?" "You have 2 hours." His face changed. Fast. "You can't be serious. I live here." "No," I corrected calmly. "You lived here. Past tense." "This is illegal," he snapped. "I'm a tenant. You can't just throw me out." "You've never paid rent," I said. "Never signed a lease. Your name isn't on the deed, the utilities, or the insurance." I pulled out my phone. "You're my ex-boyfriend who just announced his engagement to someone else. You're leaving tonight." He stood abruptly. "This is emotional abuse." "No," I said, dialing. "This is consequences." When the police arrived 20 minutes later, the officers were professional, almost sympathetic. "Ma'am," one asked Victor, "is it true you announced your engagement to another woman while living here?" "Yes," Victor said defensively. "That's not illegal." "No," the officer agreed, "but refusing to leave someone else's property is." They asked for proof. I showed my deed, my ID, my bank app. Victor had nothing. He packed 2 suitcases and several garbage bags while live streaming on social media, narrating how I was throwing him out for finding happiness. As he left, he turned back. "You'll regret this," he said. I met his eyes. "Probably not." The door closed. The house went quiet. And just like that, my after began. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was sad, surprisingly, I wasn't, but because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating on the nightstand, like it had developed a nervous system of its own. By 7:14 a.m., I had 63 text messages, 28 missed calls, and enough Instagram notifications to make my screen look like it had broken out in hives. Victor's name appeared the most, then Brianna's, then numbers I didn't recognize. Then, inevitably, his mother. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. My house. Quiet. Still intact. Nothing missing except a man who had apparently assumed consequences were optional. I picked up the phone and scrolled. Victor. This didn't have to be so extreme. You embarrassed me. Brianna is really shaken. We need to talk like adults. I didn't reply. Then a message from Brianna herself. First time she'd ever directly contacted me. Brianna, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Victor told me you two were basically roommates. I would never have agreed to this if I knew you were still together. I read that one twice. Then I laughed. Out loud this time. Roommates. Right. At 8:02 a.m., Victor's mother called again. I finally answered, not because I owed her anything, but because I was curious what version of reality had reached her. Paula, she said sharply, skipping any pretense of greeting. What is going on? Good morning to you too, Linda. I'm hearing you threw Victor out last night. I asked him to leave my house after he announced his engagement to another woman. A pause. A long one. Engagement? She repeated. Yes, to Brianna, ring and all. That's not what Victor said. I leaned back against the headboard. What did he say? He said you two were broken up months ago, that he'd just been staying temporarily while he got back on his feet, that you knew about Brianna and were supportive. I closed my eyes for a moment, not from hurt, but from the sheer audacity. He was sleeping in my bed 2 nights ago, I said evenly. We were discussing vacation plans last week, and he asked me for money to cover his credit card payment 3 days ago. Silence, then softer. I need to call you back. She never did. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I checked the cameras first. New habit, already ingrained. Brianna stood on my porch, alone. She looked exactly like her Instagram photos. Polished, distressed in a carefully curated way, clutching her phone like a prop. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Hi, she said. Can we talk? We are, I replied. She swallowed. Victor is really upset. He didn't think you'd react like that. That's because he doesn't think, I said. Her eyes flicked past me, taking in the entryway. The art on the walls, the hardwood floors. Recognition dawned slowly. This is nice, she said. Yes, I agreed. It is. She shifted. He said you were controlling, that he couldn't leave easily. I smiled, not warmly. He was free to leave any day he wanted. He just preferred staying where the bills were paid. Her face tightened. I didn't know. No, I said. You didn't want to know. She bristled. That's unfair. So is announcing an engagement over pasta in someone else's house. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I just came to get his things, she said finally. His things are already packed. I'll put them in the driveway. He can pick them up. You can't just... I can, I interrupted, and I did. She left shortly after, tears welling but unshed. Performative. Controlled. By that evening, the social media posts started. Victor posted first. A black and white photo of himself sitting on the curb with his suitcases. Caption: when you give everything to someone and they throw you away the moment you choose your own happiness. The comments rolled in fast. Stay strong, King. You deserve better. Some women can't handle being left. I watched quietly. Then Brianna reposted it with her own caption. Love shouldn't come with conditions. We're healing. That's when I decided to respond. Once. Only once. I posted no opinions, no insults, just facts. Screenshots. Victor telling me he loved me 4 days earlier. His request for money for his credit card. Bank statements showing I paid the mortgage, utilities, insurance, everything. A photo of the dinner receipt from the night he announced his engagement. My card. My signature. Caption: for clarity, my ex-boyfriend announced his engagement to another woman while living rent-free in my home. He was asked to leave. The rest is narrative management. I turned off comments. Within minutes, the tide shifted. People started asking questions. Wait, he was engaged while living with you? He said you were broken up. This is messy. One comment from Brianna's friend stood out. Girl, you told us they were separated. What is this? That night, Victor texted again. You didn't have to humiliate us online. I replied with exactly one sentence. You humiliated yourself at my dinner table. The next morning, I woke up to a new message from Victor's sister, Melissa. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was still living with you. He told us a completely different story. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. That seems to be a pattern. Outside, the house was quiet again. But I knew better now. This wasn't over. Not even close. The third day was when Victor stopped pretending this was about heartbreak. That was the day it became about control. I was working from home when my phone buzzed with a security alert. Motion detected in the driveway. I opened the camera feed and saw Victor's car pulled halfway across the curb, hazard lights flashing like he had a right to be there. He wasn't alone. 2 men stood with him. Friends, I assumed. Both bigger than him. Both wearing the kind of confidence that comes from believing you won't be challenged. Victor knocked like he owned the place. I didn't answer. Instead, I spoke through the doorbell speaker. "You're trespassing." "We're here to get Victor's property," he called back. "You can't just keep it." "I'm not keeping anything," I said calmly. "Your belongings are boxed. They'll be placed outside when you leave." One of the men scoffed. "That's not how this works. It is when the house belongs to me." Victor's voice sharpened. "Paula, don't do this. You're making it worse." I almost laughed. "You proposed to another woman while living in my house," I said. This is the better version. They didn't leave. Instead, one of his friends walked around the side yard, peering toward the back gate. My phone buzzed again, another motion alert. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I called the police. Again. By the time the patrol car arrived, Victor was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, no doubt narrating another version of events where he was the victim of a cruel, vindictive woman. The officers recognized me. "Ma'am," one said, polite but firm, "what's going on today?" "These men are trespassing," I replied. "I've asked them to leave. They refuse." Victor jumped in immediately. "She's holding my things hostage." The officer turned to him. "Sir, you were told yesterday to retrieve your belongings at a later date. This is not that date. I just need my furniture." "That furniture was purchased by me," I said, already pulling up receipts on my phone. "Couch, bed, dining set, all mine." The younger officer glanced through the documents, then looked back at Victor. "Sir," he said, "you need to leave the property now." One of the friends muttered something under his breath, something about crazy women. That was a mistake. The officer's posture changed instantly. "Did you want to repeat that?" They left after that, quickly, no more posturing. I placed Victor's boxes in the driveway once they were gone. Clothes, shoes, a laptop. That was it. No furniture, no car. The car. I'd let Victor use my second car while we were together. Fully paid off, registered in my name. I hadn't even thought about it until that evening when I noticed it wasn't in the garage. I texted him once, "Bring the car back." His reply came seconds later. "You can't take everything from me." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I called it in. Stolen vehicle. The next call came from an unfamiliar number. "Paula," Victor hissed. "I'm at the police station." "That's unfortunate." "They pulled me over." "Yes." "You reported the car stolen." "Yes." "You let me drive it." "When you were my boyfriend," I said evenly. "You're not anymore." "This is insane." "No," I corrected. "This is legal." There was a pause. Then anger. "You're evil." "I'm organized." I picked up my car that night. Victor had to take an Uber to his sister's house. He sent me a screenshot of the receipt out of spite. $72. I didn't respond. 2 days later, he tried again, this time through intimidation. It was 9:07 p.m. when my doorbell camera alerted me. Victor was back. With Brianna and 3 more men. They didn't knock. They pounded. "Open up!" someone yelled. I turned on the porch lights and spoke through the speaker again. "Leave my property immediately." "We're getting her things," Brianna shouted. "You can't keep them." "You don't live here," I replied. "None of you do." Victor stepped forward. "You're forcing us to do this." That sentence sealed it. I put the phone on speaker as I called 911. "There are multiple people attempting to force entry into my home," I said clearly. "I feel unsafe." The pounding got louder. One of the men tried the back door. That's when the motion lights flared and the cameras caught everything. Police arrived fast. 4 squad cars. Lights slicing through the dark. The mood shifted instantly. Victor tried to talk. to explain, to charm. The officers weren't interested. I showed them the footage. 4 people attempting forced entry. One of the men, the same one who'd tried the back door, was cuffed on the spot. Brianna started crying, loudly, dramatically. "This is harassment," she sobbed. "She's abusing us." The officer looked at her, unimpressed. "Ma'am, you tried to break into someone else's home." Victor was issued a trespass warning. So were the others. "Come back," the officer told them, "and you'll be arrested." As they were led away, Victor looked back at me, fury and disbelief twisting his face. "You didn't have to do this." I met his eyes. "Yes," I said quietly, "I did." That night, I slept for the first time since the dinner. Deep, undisturbed, because something fundamental had shifted. This was no longer about emotions. It was about boundaries, and I was done bending. The truth has a strange way of surfacing when people get desperate. It doesn't explode. It leaks. Slowly, inconsistently, through cracks no one thinks to seal. By week 3, Victor's narrative was unraveling faster than he could patch it. It started with a voicemail, not from him, from his sister. "Paula, I didn't know who else to call," Melissa said, her voice tight. "He's staying with me now, and this isn't adding up." I didn't interrupt. "He told us you were emotionally unstable," she continued, "that you'd trapped him financially, that he was scared to leave." She let out a humorless laugh. "Paula, he doesn't even pay for his own groceries." I closed my eyes briefly. "He's been telling Brianna you controlled him," she went on. "But he keeps asking me for money. He won't get a job. He says he's recovering from trauma." I pictured him on my couch, scrolling endlessly, talking about dreams while I paid bills. "He said you'd let him use your car because you felt guilty," she added, "that you owed him." That one stung, not because it hurt, but because it clarified everything. "I didn't owe him anything," I said. "He owed me honesty." Melissa exhaled slowly. "I believe you." That was the first time someone from his side said it out loud. The second crack appeared 2 days later. Brianna called me. Not angry, not defensive, panicked. "He lied to me," she said without preamble. I didn't respond immediately. "He told me you two had an open relationship," she rushed on, "that you knew about us the whole time." My grip tightened on the phone. "He said you were fine with it until you got jealous." There it was. The upgraded version of the lie. "I was not aware of you," I said calmly. "At all." She went quiet. Then came the part that made my stomach drop. Not from shock, but from cold recognition. "He told me he couldn't leave right away because you were threatening him," she said. "That if he moved out too fast, you'd accuse him of things." I laughed once, sharp, unamused. "And yet," I said, "he's the one with the police record now." She started crying. Real crying this time. "He told me you were dangerous." "And now?" I asked. There was a long pause. "And now I'm living with a man who can't pay rent and keeps asking me to cover his expenses," she admitted. "And every time I bring it up, he says I'm being unsupportive." I said nothing. "I think he used both of us," she whispered. Yes, I thought. He did. By the end of that week, Victor had moved again. Melissa gave him 30 days. He lasted 9. Apparently, trauma didn't exempt him from dishes or contributing or basic respect. That's when the lie got bigger. He told Brianna he was expecting a child with her. She found out the truth the same way I'd found out everything else, with receipts. A pregnancy test dated weeks before they'd even reconnected. A timeline that didn't make sense. And finally, a slip. One of his former roommates, someone Victor had lived with before me, reached out to Brianna privately. He sent her a video, footage from a common area camera in the apartment they shared. Victor, pacing, on camera, laughing. He paused, then added casually, "Men panic when they think they're about to lose control." Brianna sent me the video without a word. I watched it once, then twice, then I forwarded it to my lawyer. Victor's legal threats arrived the following week. Not a lawsuit, just a cease and desist from a lawyer who clearly hadn't read the room, demanding $50,000 for emotional distress, claiming illegal eviction, requesting the return of shared property. My lawyer didn't even sigh. He smiled. "I'll handle this," he said. His response was 3 pages long. Professional. Surgical. Included market rate rent calculations for 2.5 years. $48,000. Victor's lawyer dropped him within 48 hours. Victor tried to represent himself, filed 17 pages of rambling accusations filled with buzzwords like emotional terrorism and love discrimination. The judge skimmed it, then dismissed it in under 5 minutes. But the real collapse didn't happen in court. It happened quietly, at home. Brianna kicked him out after he demanded she co-sign a loan. His parents refused to take him back. Melissa blocked his number. And Victor, who had once believed he could live indefinitely on charm and borrowed stability, ran out of places to land. The last time I heard his name, it was through someone else. A mutual acquaintance ran into me at a cafe. "Hey," she said awkwardly, "do you know Victor?" "I used to." She hesitated. "He's telling people you ruined his life." I took a sip of my coffee. "I just stopped funding it," I replied. That night, I walked through my house slowly. The rooms felt lighter. Not emptier, lighter. Because something had broken, not in me, but in the illusion he'd been living inside. And once that illusion collapsed, it took everything else with it. 3 months passed. Not dramatically, quietly, which, I learned, is how real endings usually happen. There were no more surprise visits, no more legal letters, no late-night texts laced with accusation or nostalgia. Victor's name faded from my notifications, then from my thoughts, the way a background noise disappears once it stops. People assume peace feels empty at first. It doesn't. It feels clean. The first sign that everything had finally settled came in the mail. A cream-colored envelope with unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a short note. "Paula, we owe you an apology. We're in therapy. We're trying to understand how we enabled things for so long. Enclosed is something small, not to fix anything, just to acknowledge it. Linda and Robert." There was a check, $2,000. I stared at it for a long moment before folding the note and placing both back in the envelope. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel smug. I felt done. Melissa texted me that same week. "He moved back in with our parents. They gave him a deadline. He's not taking it well." I replied honestly. "I hope he figures it out." I meant it. In the abstract way you wish a storm well once it's no longer hovering over your house. A few days later, Brianna messaged me one final time. "I saw the footage," she wrote. "All of it. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to say. The last update came from a stranger. I was at a bar with a friend when a man approached, hesitating like he wasn't sure he should speak. "Hey," he said, "this might be weird, but do you know Victor?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" He scratched the back of his neck. "I used to be his roommate, before you." Something clicked. "Oh," I said, "then this probably will be weird." He laughed softly. "He told everyone you were the villain, but yeah, we saw how things actually went down." He told me the rest in pieces, like gossip that had finally lost its urgency. Victor had tried the same tactics there, the same stories, the same entitlement. When Brianna finally kicked him out, he threatened to accuse her of assault if she didn't let him stay. The roommates, older, wiser, had installed cameras in the common areas. They caught everything. Him admitting he'd lied about the pregnancy. Him laughing about how easy it was to manipulate women. Him saying, on camera, they always feel guilty eventually. The footage went to the police. He was escorted out. No charges, just consequences. The man finished his drink and shrugged. "Karma took its time," he said, "but when it showed up, it was thorough." I smiled faintly. It was. As for me, life didn't become perfect. It became balanced. My bills dropped. My house stayed clean without effort. My weekends belonged to me again. I started dating. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I finally trusted my instincts again. The first man I dated insisted on paying for dinner. The second insisted on splitting it. The third owned his own place, his own car, and actually asked what I needed. That one stuck. His name is Andrew. He doesn't need rescuing. He doesn't need managing. He doesn't confuse love with access. The first time he came over, he asked where to park, not if he could move in. It was so normal, it almost scared me. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to that dinner. The pasta, the ring, the smile Victor wore when he assumed I'd accommodate his betrayal like a scheduling conflict. I realize now it was a gift. If he'd been subtler, if he'd waited, lied longer, eased me into it, I might have wasted years trying to fix something that was never real. Instead, he showed me exactly who he was in one sitting. The entitlement, the delusion, the belief that other people existed to support his choices. I didn't take revenge. And the funny thing is, once I stopped carrying his weight, everything else felt lighter too. My house is peaceful. My boundaries are firm. My mornings are quiet. And Victor, he's no longer my problem. He's everyone else's, one at a time.